What's up, you guys? My name is Aubrey and this is my channel, and today we're going to be talking about one of the most valuable things that you can know if you are somebody that wants to grow a turo fleet. And in this video, I'm going to be breaking down exactly what you need to do and the steps that you need to take if you're somebody that wants to buy a cheap vehicle that is below market value, meaning that you are buying it below the average price that car sells for. In this video, I'm going to be breaking down the exact steps on how to do this, and the best part is you don't need a dealer's license, you don't need to have any sort of special connections, and anybody can do this from the comfort of their own home. So let's get started. Now, I talk about buying cars below market value all the time. It's something that I've mentioned on my channel probably dozens, if not hundreds of times at this point, because of the fact that I really do believe that buying cars below market value is the path to success for a turo business. I think that if you want to be successful in turo, you have to buy cars below market value. But similar to most things in life, telling you to buy cars below market value is much easier said than done. And there are some very important, sometimes difficult to learn steps that you'll need to learn if you're somebody that wants to actually implement this practice in your own life. Now, before we dig in, I would like to offer a bit of a caveat. And that caveat is the fact that right now in June of 2021, the used car market is absolutely nuts. It is insane. And because of this, there are cars that are being sold online for significantly higher prices than they really should be. You're finding cars that are marked up 10, 20, sometimes even 25% higher than what they're actually worth because of the fact that used cars and cars in general have a pretty significant shortage. The advice I'm going to be giving you today is something that will absolutely help you get cars below market value in today's market in June of 2021. But these skills and this process will be significantly easier for you to implement in your own life once the used car market settles a bit. So I want you to keep that in mind moving forward. This, of course, will help you in present day, but it will help you even more once the used market comes back down to earth after this huge bubble that we're in bursts. So with that being said, let's dig into it. So the first step of the process of buying cars below market value is figuring out which cars you want to look for and doing a ton of research on these specific types of cars. Now, whenever it comes to trying to find a used car, whether it be for your own use, whether it be for a turo fleet, a get-around fleet, whatever the case is, if you are looking to buy used cars below market value, I would suggest narrowing down your choices to about 5 to 7 cars that you want to keep an eye on. If you are looking for every single car that there is available out there, you are casting such a broad net that it's going to be very difficult to find a single car that is a great deal because you won't know a ton about any one of these cars. Instead, you'll just be looking everywhere. I would encourage you to niche down, find between 5 and 7 cars that you would be interested in buying, and do your research on those vehicles. Now, whenever I tell you to do your research, what I mean by that is to simply scroll through the classified ads. You can look through Facebook Marketplace, you can look through Craigslist, you can look through cars.com. Simply see what these cars are selling for. For example, let's use a Toyota Yaris as the example for this video. If you look at a Toyota Yaris and you look for it on Facebook, Craigslist, AutoTrader, Cars.com, whatever the case is, you will find a kind of median price point for that vehicle. Maybe it's $4,000, maybe it's $5,000. In June of 2021, it might be $7,000. Regardless, you will find a kind of average median price for that vehicle. And that is the price that you know is the average price. Oftentimes, this price will be something that is very close to KBV value. It is something that is just kind of across the board, the average that you see online. Another really great due diligence tool that you can use is CarGurus has a really great online tool where you can actually type in the type of car that you want to do your research on, and it will give you the historical data and kind of the average selling price for that vehicle. So once again, using a Toyota Yaris as the example for this video, you can see here that this is Toyota Yaris price trends, and I set the dates from June 1st, 2019 to June 1st, 2021, so 2-year time period. And you can see here that there is a graph showing like what the index price is, but then there are also graphs for the 2020 Toyota Yaris as well as the 2019. But the real value comes with the table that's underneath, and you can see that table here. You can see that like right now the average price for a 2007 Toyota Yaris is $5,400. The average price for a 2008 Yaris is $6,000. The average price for a 2009 is $7,171. And you can even see how these trends are heading compared to year over year as well as the last 90 days. For example, looking again at the 2007 the year-over-year increase is 11%. If we look at the 2009 Toyota Yaris, the year-over-year is 38%. So in this example, the 2009 Toyota Yaris is selling for 38% higher today in June of 2021 than it was in June of 2020. Now, this is just one example. You can use this for any type of car you would like, whether it be a Yaris, a Focus, a Maserati, a Lamborghini, whatever the case is. You can use this tool to see what the prices of cars are. Now, again, to provide you with some context as to just how insane the 2021 car market is I purchased a 2007 Toyota Yaris 2 years ago for $3,500 consistently. Like, I could find a 2007, 2008, 2009 Toyota Yaris for $3,500 all day long. And to see that 2 years later, these cars are now selling for $5,400 is just mind blowing. I mean, we are in such a crazy bubble right now with cars and just automotive pricing. And I know that it's because of just shortages and chip issues and things like that. But the used car market is insane. It's absolutely crazy, and this is such a testament to that. You can also use this tool and you can select and deselect which cars you want to compare. And so let's look at the 2009, 2010, and 2011, and then let's scroll back up and look at this graph. You can see how these prices have fluctuated over the years. And I mean, you can even see that a 2009 Toyota Yaris is selling for about the same price as a 2011 Toyota Yaris today in June of 2021, which again is insane, but I could talk about that forever. But the fact is that this tool is going to be really helpful to show you okay, what are cars actually selling for? What is a very realistic price to pay for a car? And this will be able to let you know how much you could expect to pay, but more importantly, how much would be considered below market value. Now, what I would encourage you to do whenever you're going through the due diligence process of researching what cars you want to start looking at, what the prices of these cars are, I would encourage you to just look through, Facebook Marketplace, cars.com, Auto Trader every single day. In fact, I do this multiple times a day. I'll eat my breakfast and be skimming through Facebook Marketplace. I will be reading the news or watching YouTube videos, and I'll be looking at Facebook Marketplace at the same time. I'll be cooking my dinner at night in the evening, and I will be looking at Facebook and Craigslist. I look at online automotive marketplaces probably 3 to 5 times a day just to see what is available, what has become available, what are the prices. And if you do that often enough, you will start to learn what is a good deal and what isn't a good deal. And you'll start to understand how much you should expect to pay for a vehicle. So now that we know roughly how much a car is worth, we probably know by now how much we should expect to pay for a specific type of car. But now begs the question of what is below market value? What is considered to be below market? And the answer to that is quite simple. It's anything below average, I would say. There really isn't a clear-cut definition as to what is and is not below market value. But if you do your research enough and if you start looking at these cars often enough, you will begin to learn what is and what is not below market value. Let me give you an example. So if we are looking at, again, a Toyota Yaris, and let's say that I wanted to buy a 2007 Toyota Yaris, and I know based off of the data that I've researched and based off of my own experience looking at these cars, that the average price for these cars right now, today in June of 2021, is $5,000. I know that $5,000 is the average price, but I don't want to pay average. I want to pay below market value. So in this case, I would really be willing to pay anything below $4,500. I would offer $4,500 on a $5,000 car all day long. There really isn't a clear-cut guide as to what is the exact definition of below market value, and I really just use this as a blanket umbrella statement of saying that you're paying below average price. I would say that if you find a car that is listed at an average price, I would probably take off about 10% of that price and make them an offer for that amount. Once again, if a car is listed for $5,000, I will typically offer $4,500 and see what it goes from there. Now, we can talk about this all day long in theory about how to do your due diligence on finding the prices of vehicles and getting an expectation of how much you should expect to pay. We can talk about how to offer below market value pricing, but none of this means anything if you actually don't go out and buy a car below market value. And so that's really what I want to talk about here, is how do you actually applicably go out and buy below market cars? Now, there are a few different paths that you can pursue, but I'm going to talk about my favorite path, and that is Facebook Marketplace. Now, whenever it comes to buying cars, I buy probably 95% of my cars on Facebook Marketplace. It used to be Craigslist, but over the years, Craigslist has been overtaken by shady ads, shady dealerships, and it just simply isn't as easy to use as it once was. So I've started going with Facebook Marketplace instead. Whenever you're looking for Facebook Marketplace vehicles for sale, there are a few things that you want to keep an eye out for. Number one is you want to look for individual sellers, not dealerships. This is another thing that Facebook Marketplace has been flooded with recently. It's super annoying, but it's the reality of the situation. There are more and more small time, one off dealerships listing their cars on Facebook Marketplace, which is super annoying because whenever you buy cars from a dealership, even one that is like a mom and pop small time dealership, there are oftentimes more fees associated with that sale. And that's simply a route I'm not interested in going in. So I prefer to deal with individuals who are simply selling their cars, people like me or you. And so, whenever you're looking for a car that you want to buy for a below market value, you should try to keep an eye out for those people. Those people that have one car listed on Facebook Marketplace rather than a fleet of cars that they're selling. Now, the way that you can figure this out is if you go to Facebook Marketplace and you click on a vehicle that you want to look at, if you look at the right hand column, you'll be able to find the person who is selling that car. And if you click on their profile, you'll be able to see how much other things are selling, how many other items do they have listed for sale in Marketplace. And by clicking on that, you'll be able to see, okay, do they have one vehicle for sale or do they have like a dealership worth of cars for sale? This will be a really good indicator to see what the intention is behind these people. Typically speaking, people who are dealerships are harder to negotiate with and they oftentimes have hidden fees associated with them. And so because of that, you may be agreeing to the purchase price of a vehicle and you think it's below market value, but after all of the fees associated with the purchase, it isn't below market value anymore. Also, the thing I don't like about small time dealerships is they more than often get their cars from auction, which isn't a bad thing, but they are simply flippers. They bought these cars at a cheap price, they are now selling them for a profit, and I'm not interested in contributing to these flippers' profit. I want to be the one to make the profit, not give it to them. And so I typically try to avoid these small time dealerships, but that really is your choice. If you find a good deal and you feel confident about working with a small time dealership, you absolutely could. That is just my preference. Now, the other thing that I look for, other than avoiding small dealerships, is finding cars that are already listed at that market price. Let's again turn to the Toyota Yaris. If I am somebody that is looking at Facebook Marketplace for a Toyota Yaris, I am going to want to try to find a car that is listed for about an average price. In the case of the Toyota, it would be about $5,000. Because I know if I find a car like a Toyota Yaris that is listed for $5,000 on Facebook Marketplace, chances are I can then negotiate with that seller and bring them down a bit in the price, bringing it down to below market value price. Once again, if $5,000 Yaris negotiated down to $4,500, I am now below market value. If you find a bunch of cars on Facebook Marketplace that are listed significantly higher than they're actually worth, for example, a $10,000 Yaris that's actually only worth $5,000, there is virtually zero chance that you are going to negotiate that person down to where they actually need to be, and I simply would not waste my time. You want to get somebody that doesn't really need the needle moved that much to get them in the below market value zone. Don't bother going for those people that have simply unrealistic expectations on the price of their vehicle. Now, once I find that car that I'm interested in on Facebook Marketplace, the next step of the process is contacting the seller. And whenever I contact the seller, I almost will use the exact same script every single time. I'll message them on Facebook and say, hey, is this available? They will inevitably respond yes or no. If they respond yes, then I respond back, is it a clean title? They will then respond yes or no once again. And then depending on their response, I will then message them once again saying, hey, would you take X amount of dollars? I can come tonight with cash. A few key things to keep in mind when communicating with the seller. Number one, always offer cash. This is important because the seller doesn't want to mess with checks or with payments or anything like that. Cash is king, and offering to give them cash tonight is something that is a real incentive. Number two is I always offer to come that same day. I always say, hey, I will come tonight, or I can come right now. This is because of the fact that the idea of having the car sold tonight without any delay is something that a lot of sellers find appealing. You have no idea how many times I've been able to purchase a car below market value simply because I was willing to come right then and right there. That is a huge incentive for the vehicle seller. If the seller refuses, then I will simply move on. If the seller agrees, then at that point in time, I will ask for the VIN or the vehicle identification number. That way I can run a carfax on that vehicle. This is an incredibly important step that you should never, ever skip. Running the Carfax on your cars that you're looking at buying, whether it be for Turo or even just for your own personal use, is one of the most important steps of the process. Whenever you're buying low-end vehicles, especially low-end vehicles below market value, you will find a lot of cars that are advertised as being clean title vehicles, and once you run the Carfax, you will find that it is salvage branded or it has more shadiness to it than you realize. For example, a rolled back odometer. This happens to me on a weekly basis. It happens all of the time. And if I didn't run Carfaxes on every single vehicle I look to purchase, then I wouldn't even be able to tell you how many times I would have been screwed by shady dealers or shady sellers who are selling me a vehicle with a branded title. Then once you run the Carfax, you confirm that the Carfax is clean, you confirm that all of the information that the seller told you checks out per the Carfax, then you're good to go. It's time to go check the car in person and make sure that it aligns with how the car was described to you. Now, of course, the pre-purchase inspection, whenever you actually get to the vehicle, is like a whole other animal that is as important, if not more important, than the digital part of the car buying process. But I can't talk about it in this video because that video would take forever and it would turn this video into like an hour-long video. But I do have a video that I did on this in the past with my fiance HP. He's the one that does all of our pre-purchase inspections in person, and we did do a video where we walked through this entire process from start to finish to let you guys know what to look for if you're buying a used car. So I would encourage you to check that out. I will include a link to that down in the description below. Now, this is pretty much the entire car buying process that I use to buy all of my cars below market value. I don't have a dealer's license. I don't have access to an auction, though I am trying to make that a reality, but it is taking a bit of time. I don't have a lot of the resources that a traditional dealership or even car rental agency would have. I have to use the resources that me as an individual has available to me, and for the most part, that's Carfax and Facebook Marketplace. The thing that's important to keep in mind here is that buying vehicles below market value is something that is difficult. It's not an easy task. If it was easy, I would have a 30 or 40 car Turo fleet at this point. But the fact is, below market value cars that are actually good cars are hard to come by. And because of that, it is important to make this almost a daily ritual. Make it a point to look at cars every single day. That way you can jump on these below market value cars when you find them. You won't find them all the time, and whenever you do find them, 50% of the time they'll end up being duds. But every once in a while, you will find those really good, really solid, below market value cars that you're able to get for a great deal. You can then rent them on Turo and then sell them later for a profit. This is where the Turo business model can be made or broken, by buying your cars at the right price. And the process that I've laid out in this video is the exact process that I use to do this every single time. Now, with that being said, you guys, I hope that you enjoyed this video, and I hope that it gave you some valuable information regarding how to buy cars at a below market value price. I know that this is something that is very much easier said than done, but with practice, it really doesn't have to be that difficult. It really is just about making it a daily routine in your day-to-day life. But like always, if you have any questions, comments, if you have anything to add, I would love to hear it. So make sure to leave a comment down below. And while you guys are at it, make sure to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and hit the notification bell. And I will see you guys in the next video.